welcome to my cellar. Gary Con was last weekend. Got a lot of things to go through, and I'll do the Gary Con wrap up at the end. And it might be a long one, so you better check your coffee level or your whatever your. Make sure you got another bowl of cereal handy. Okay, now this came in from a mutual friend of Jim Ward's and mine. Heartbroken tonight to hear the news of his passing. I remember him sending me a signed copy of his new version at the time of Metamorphosis Alpha hardcover book back in 2008, completely unprompted. He just wanted my address, and I thought I would enjoy it. I was honored and flattered that he liked my dopey posts on Dragon's Foot. And yes, I know who this poster is, and also count them as a friend. Enough to give me such a nice gift. I've always cherished that book, and it is and always an estate item. It leaves my possession over my dead body. Safe trip, Mr. Ward. You're already sorely missed. Yeah, that was pure Jim. If he enjoyed conversing with you back and forth on a post or on a thread or like Dragon's Foot was, yeah, he did those kind of things. Okay, now, most of you are probably familiar with the high school groups. We've kind of followed them since last year when he's getting them off the ground now. So it's been a while since he commented, and he's here to give us an update. I try to make a short field report from the school club, overall continuing apace and even still adding members here in the 11th hour of the spring semester. The Waterdeep campaign took a hit when 2 members started participating on the tennis team and began, missing sessions. However, we have some new prospects looking to join their urban hijinks. One particularly lean session, the student DM broke out some Pathfinder material and had them looking at a different system's character creation. That was a proud teacher-librarian moment. The Ravenloft campaign continued our bent toward old school by continuing to have the players rely on their own senses with only occasional visual of an NPC for maximum effect. They made it out of Barovia proper, though they seem to have lost Irina, and 2 party members have joined that noble ghostly procession from the town graveyard each night. Undeterred, my student co-DM and I expect their new characters to join the fray this very week. Ahead of them lies the path to either experience the grand tradition of Madame Eva's card reading, or miss it entirely, bumbling through the mist like right newbies. Great to hear. Excited also to share I've signed on to run 4 2-hour sessions during summer school starting the second week of June. The main students will be rising freshmen, and the plan is to have my club members DM game. Wish me luck. And to bring up on my reading report, finally finished The Wonderful Game Wizards by John Peterson, obviously recommended for all, and I agree. And I've been reading a very interesting academic work entitled Tabletop Role-Playing Games and the Experience of Imagined Worlds by a lecturer named Nicholas J. Miser. An expensive book to buy individually, but I recommend reaching out to your local libraries wherever you may and ask them about it. Look forward to hearing the report from the con. Okay. Any good stories with James Ward? Yes, and they're coming. Okay, considering the dearth of comments from the previous week, I feel there's an opening to inquire about a less serious curiosity. Where does your sign-off phrase, "Dodatagovi," come from? I've never heard it before. Several years ago, I was surfing the net, and I wanted to find a good word that meant goodbye, a respectful goodbye. And apparently, poster, you don't speak Cherokee. Because from what I was found in the dictionary I read online, that word dodatagovi is a respectful goodbye to more than one person. So I thought, well, that's pretty cool. And you might be the fifth or sixth one who's asked over the years. And that's cool too. So now everybody that heard this knows it's Cherokee. On to the next deathless question. I recently talked to an old grog who said he remembers when published character sheets were new and innovative. He and his buddies were so excited they could put all their character info on a single organized sheet. Do you recall when the published character sheet became a viable idea as opposed to using index cards, etc., etc.? All right. He has a two-part question here. I'll stop there. We Warriors in San Francisco put out a collection of beautifully illustrated exotic character sheets, and for different classes, and an artist named Morno, and I don't know any more than that, did a lot of the drawings on them. And I believe that when Gary saw them, he told him, yeah, cool, all right. It's not anything they were making at the time, and it was a playing aid, a true playing aid. And so other people started putting out their own. This was the middle of the Xerox revolution. And I really don't recall when TSR started putting out the pads. I know it was while I was there. Pardon me, after I got there. Judges Guild came up with some character sheet. There were other designs and ideas floating around in the fanzines. It was one of those things that was just like, duh. You know, you need a large piece of paper to start keeping records and writing stuff down. And it went from there. People were doing it on their own before there were ones that were available to the public. Also, he said he and his buddies would type up and mimeograph the rules because the official rules were hard to find. Did TSR do anything to discourage copying the rules, or did they remain silent so long as that was for personal use? Okay, the crackdown started while I was with the company, but it was nothing that I had. At first, I didn't even know. There was a time, I know, shortly after I left, when the piracy was so grievous that poor Jim Ward had the job of going around and busting people for it and confiscating. The rules were, the copyright rules were different then. It was during that 75, 80 time, somewhere in there, that they were newly codified. And now you cannot do that. You can make a copy for personal use. That's it. Well, there were guys that had access to a Xerox machine on campus, and they'd make 6 copies, and some of them were selling them, some of them were just giving them to their buddies. It's a double-edged sword you're dealing with here. You got to be careful how you grab it. You want to see lots and lots of people learn to play the game. However, you don't want to see sales going the way of what's essentially illegal copying. So yeah, they did stuff about it. I was not involved in it, but they certainly were not a fan of the practice. Nowadays, the parameters of the copyright laws are considerably different than they were in 75, 76, even in 77, I believe. Hope you have a good time at GaryCon. Very envious. It's a long way from the UK, so very hard, expensive to make it. I like the fact you talk about fudging rolls. I try to run a low level of rolling of my games. I wonder what, in your view, makes a good villain for the PC to play against. I get a little bored of adventures that just have focus on stopping an orc tribe. I want to bring something to them as a tribe. Okay, get out of the orcs. You don't need, think of a fantasy short story, a sword and sorcery short story, or novel or novella that you've read that had a pretty interesting character in it. Lift it out of there and modify it to make it your own. And it doesn't have to be modified much, only what you want. But part of why we published Appendix N. Here's all these nuggets out there, go mine them. And in this case, in my opinion, it's an easy transition from, cleaning out the orcs to what? And you can do stuff like they're hiring. Lord so-and-so is hiring. And he's hiring to go do a job. And the job involves this nasty character, personage, whatever it is. And from that, other little ones might spin off on the way, so to speak. Bad guys can be anywhere. Keep in mind that in the 3 books, the player characters were player characters. Everything else was a monster. Anything that might oppose the player characters, might be deployed against them in opposition or wish them ill, etc., was a monster. Now, there were good monsters, NPCs, good alignment, depending upon how you wrap them into your tale. Steal any plot line you like and plug it into your campaign and jigger with it a little bit and say, okay, boys, let's go. Anything will make a big bad evil guy. Big bad evil guy could be, the town's going to build a dam and that's going to cut off the water flow into the river that goes into the forest, and the forest is going to get dry. Find an ecology battle. What can you do to make them think, And again, you don't want to let them metagame in something like that. No hydraulic readings and any that kind of stuff. But there's lots of ways to find an opponent. Do I know who did the cover of the Ed Greenwood D&D module? CMS The Endless Stare. No. And it was attributed to Jack Fred. I've heard various claims about who painted it, but it looks like a Keith Parkinson to me. Another question, because they're both related. Do you know who wrote the D&D module B9 Castle Caldwell and Beyond? I've heard that the listed author's funny-sounding name, Harry W. Knuckles, Nuckols, is fake. It's not an uncommon practice when something ends up being done by committee that no one takes the credit for it and they make up a name. It's highly possible that's what happened here. Do I know for sure? Nope. After my time. Same with the module. Could have been something that was started by one writer and for whatever reason taken over by another to carry it along, and possibly even for whatever reason a third becomes involved at the end. And so with equal contributions, rather than list three names, just make up one. It sounds like something like that. And this individual thought for some reason that I was going to see this comment before I left to go with GaryCon, and try to cast a Geas on me to find out all this information. Well, hapless individual, know that I cannot be swayed by Geas. The druid in me is immune. And you're rather presumptuous to say that. If you were in my campaign, I would have squashed you like a bug and punished you. How's the time at GaryCon? Okay, yeah. I'll get to it again. Yes, there was a pall over it. It wasn't like, a complete bummer, but it certainly cut the tops off the clouds and filtered some of the rainbows and sunbeams. Please tell us your adventures on the road. Yes. Okay, what kind of swag? This is all coming. So, that's fine. Now, this individual just asked too many questions about who did I meet with, and, when I go to GaryCon, I meet with lots and lots of people, new friends, old friends, disremembered friends from years of separation. I'd have to have a little recorder stuck in my cheek to be able to name all the people when I run into them, because when I first get there, it sometimes takes me 15 or 20 minutes just to get across the lobby. So, asked about pies. Okay. When a party turns murder-hobo on townsfolk, what repercussions would a reasonable DM be expected to levy on the party, especially the cleric, depending upon alignment, of course? And an ancillary question, what's a real-world analog of a neutral alignment? Cleric, he asked, or she. No, sociopath. To go back to the other, when the town turns murder-hobo. Okay. When you get a bunch of murder-hobos on your hands, were you paying any attention to everybody's alignment and deities rather than just the cleric? If not, okay, if you did, that's certainly a way to squeeze on them. I just thought of something. If you don't have a logical position to do it from, just go illogical. Pick a big deity, a powerful deity that just gets disgusted by their behavior, surrounds them with lightning bolts and lays it on them, the boom. Whether it's physical punishment, forcing them to go on a quest, that's a real good way. Because if they don't, they will start losing hit points permanently every 3 days, etc., etc. Because you have this god, Thor, Odin, whoever, Quetzalcoatl, lay it on them. Lay it on them. Now, if they are normally professing to be alignments that would not coincide with their activities, well, that's easy. Slow heals, no heals, cascading damage. Not only can't you get those 2 points healed, now you got 3 points to heal. Now, I don't get into damage location and critical hits and all that. But if you do, bingo. Yeah, your arm just won't heal. It's getting worse. And not to offend anybody intentionally, they come to they have a come to Jesus moment and realize they got to get right with the Lord. And so, what penance do they have? And if you make it grueling and hard enough, I don't think they'll do it again, because you don't want to send them on a quest that's going to make them more money. You want to send them on a quest that's going to do nothing but either get them killed or gain experience. So make it hard, make it grueling, make it take a long time, because it's a long time away and they got to go overland. And if you shroud it all in an alignment deity thing, it's logical if that's the campaign type you play. I don't think it's at all fair just to lay the crap on the cleric. Now, if the cleric did not to do his best to try to dissuade this murder-hobo behavior, then yeah, he's going to feel wimpy, and I'm going to affect his constitution, and I'm going to affect maybe his intelligence or his something of that nature. Just fool with it. When he's got to make a roll, depending upon one of those, what he thought he made, he didn't. And lay it down that way. But it's not fair to only do it to the cleric unless he willingly joined in the slaughter. And then I would even advocate that the cleric should be punished more than the rest of the group, because he was supposed to know better. And I don't think you'll have another case of running amok and slaughtering the town if they complete the task you set them, the quest that they must. You lay a Geas on them, they've got to go do it. If they don't, they start suffering physically. A Geas can be an extremely effective weapon in the hands of the DM. Extremely effective. All right. Another comment. Seems to me the fudging should be done beforehand during the planning stage when the DM is inserting special circumstances to rule. Just my opinion. Right. Yes. It's called shaping. No, I don't mean to, well, a little smart ass. That's my style. But that's called shaping. I do not rigidly follow the dice in constructing a dungeon. I do not consult Treasure Table X, and I don't. Well, I don't live by them. I might look on a table and, just see, okay, what's there, what might be there. And I don't believe that, especially if you're doing this questy punishment thing, for example, you should be very lenient at all and fudge it there. I once designed an adventure that they found the temple that had only been partially looted. Unfortunately, the part that wasn't looted was 143,000 copper pieces. And it was in the middle of a desert in the sand. So it was going to be tough to lug them out. It might even been more than that. It was a huge amount. Fudging is when you go, well, you temper the results of the dice if you're following a procedure and creating something new. You can do that. I know some people use tables just so it doesn't feel like it was so arbitrary what they made. Okay, so that's fine too. Okay, had somebody that posted late, and then it was posted over on Facebook, the same question topic, and that was to do with phantasmal forces. They are, yes, they are an illusion, spell. Okay, I want to make sure I didn't miss a page here. Nope, I didn't. Okay. If you had read the full spell explanation in the Player's Handbook, you would have seen the word disbelief. Phantasmal forces only hurt you if you think they're real. It's a psych thing, I guess. If you think they're real and you get into battling with them and one of them smites you across the head, it will do real damage. Disbelieve. If you don't believe they're real, they won't hurt you. It's hard to explain to people how to deal with that concept. We thought it'd be easier if you picked up the clues to work it out yourself a little bit, disbelief being the key here. During the development of the game, somebody picked up on the fact that in one of the Conan novels, because Conan and whoever he was with had wine splashed across their eyes, they saw through the illusion. And so it got to a point, and I kid you not on this, where every time they went in a room, they were splashing mead or something alcoholic into their eyes to make sure that what they were seeing was real. Well, like many of the birth pangs of D&D, that was getting, pretty well out of hand. Sorry, I just noticed that I had to plug in my vape or I'd be jonesing in the morning. Hold on. It got to the point where adventurers were going around with raccoon eyes, except they were red from all the burning they'd had. So, okay, you can't let it get that far. But when a player character has a suspicion that maybe, then let them dab a little moonshine, whiskey, whatever you want to call it. Let them dab a little in one eye. Not saying splash it on your face, but that's an easy way to detect, because it's the disbelief part. Was it well explained back then? No. But I would be surprised if there wasn't a Dragon article or two or a question answered in some of the Dragons after I left about it. And it was always about disbelief. Not just going in saying I disbelieve is a viable action. And depending upon how your DM wants to do with your, I always looked at the wisdom and the intelligence and kind of swirled them together and roll and give them a chance based on, like a 17 and a 16 in those two would probably have a pretty good chance of seeing through an illusion. Phantasmal forces, if they were like cast as fake sentinels, would probably grow and very faint and fade with time. Anyone would, or could. And I think that's okay. That's how we dealt with them. And yeah, it wasn't exactly well. That was one of many spells that could have been a little better. Gary Con. Okay, lead up to Gary Con. I told you I got that killer flu. Laid me out for 2.5 days, and another 2.5 days with brain fog. And so when I committed, Tuesday to driving up Wednesday, it was because Jim Wampler, my wingman, said he would drive all the driving he needed to do. So he drove up to the Cow. That's exit 200 on Interstate 65 in Indiana. And then I drove up from there, which is down low and below Chicago, and try to miss a bit as much as possible. So that helped because I was still pretty run down. Run down enough that I forgot 2 things that I should have taken with, and kicked myself mentally several times because of. But I was too burned to do the driving, and I was still getting over processing Jim. So it was, all in all, it was a neat drive. We had mostly good weather, but there were patches of a cloud here, or there. But it was a nice drive, lovely spring day. And while Jim's doing that driving, I'm thinking to myself, well, my game is not coming out. The Lost Adventures is not coming out. We've been, both of us, burning the candle at both ends, which is probably why we both ended up sick. Him, my partner Don, considerably sicker than I am. And so, this thing I've been aiming for weeks is not going to happen. And not only that, but much worse, Jim won't be there. And I don't feel really good anyway, but okay, we're going to go. And we get there and turn on the local weather, and they're forecasting snow for the next night, anywhere from 3 to 6 inches. Yep, we must be at Gary Con. Got in, checked in, had let me take a note here. Got something I want to remember to talk about. I know I'm not real disorganized. I'm not real organized. I'm still kind of flighty. I admit I always look forward to the swag bag, and it didn't disappoint. In fact, I got a swag item or 2 over here that I'm going to get to later, in its entirety. I got an enormous box, and I mean enormous box, about this wide, about that thick, and it's from the Army Painter people, and it's a great big do-it-yourself box on making yourself terrain. And there's sheets of varying different thicknesses of styrofoam in there, and there's a foam cutter. And if you're really, if you're into it and want to do custom terrain, and I think when I looked at it, I saw more outdoor miniatures type terrain than I did underground caverns type, probably because I'm spoiled by all the resins that are out there. But then we got finally somebody heard me undoubtedly talking about there's too much health food in the welcome gift, so we actually got a couple of Oreo double stuffed Oreos and cashews and some 8 or 9 Pringle chips and a bag of little pretzels. So, yay, a win for the unhealthy. Around the venue, there were several places where they had gotten a real good picture of Jim and very tastefully just who he was and the years of his life. That thread was there throughout the con, but it almost became a celebration of his life as we were talking about him and playing games that either he had originally scheduled or were games he was involved with the creation of, and we were going to play. Harold Johnson had the thankless task of taking over all of Jim's games and running them for the people that were already all signed up. And so that didn't go away. It didn't put a big damper on it, but it was just a dark ribbon woven through the weekend and the con. A lot of people were very kind and gracious and stopped by and gave me condolences because they knew of my long-term deep friendship with Jim. To all of you, I say thank you again. It almost, he's dead, but we're here to play games. We're going to play games, and we're going to have fun in Jim's memory. So it was, there was a salvaged, cool effect that came out of it. I'm not looking up where I'm supposed to. I had said earlier that I wasn't going to do the pie game this year, and I meant it when I said it. However, the Ward family sent me over a pie from Elkhorn, so I had to have the game to honor their commitment to their dad/husband's thing, and I did it. We had a pie game, and I told wonderful stories about Jim, and that's what I will continue to do in years to come. We'll still have a pie game in Jim's memory, and I'll tell good stories about Jim. I had 4 games, 27 players, and only 1 jackass. Wow, it was great fun. I do the Wheel of Blame. Somebody asked last episode of what was it. You should probably find a bunch of references to it. Google it. It's what I do. It's the game I do. It's very ad-lib. Improvisational D&D. Great fun. I got invited to a dinner, and I thank my host again. It was a magnificent dinner. If I'd been feeling better, I'd have made a glutton out of myself. As it is, I feel guilty for the steak I didn't eat. I only could eat about 35 or 40% of this god-awful, amazing New York strip steak. It was a wonderful dinner. I learned how the real will saw the light of day from the person who did it. What a story that was. This individual had gotten into a business arrangement with the widow to make the products more saleable in other markets, and chunked in some money, as I recall. And well, and was given complete and full license to go through all the papers and notes and everything of the estate. And he found the actual will, not the one that the widow tried to present. And when he told her that, now this is his relating the story to the table full of grogs and hotshots around the industry. She told him with no uncertain terms he couldn't say a word, give it back. He'd signed an NDA. Okay. Smart fellow this. He says fine. He decided he was going to sue her for breach and not doing whatever, and now the will became evidence in the suit. And it got probated, and the family, the children, got recognized for what their father wanted. And I got it right there out of the horse's mouth. Interesting dinner, I can tell you that. Some products I saw that caught my eye. One of the swags was a throwback set of light blue dice, and a white crayon, which apparently is extremely nostalgic for some people because that was their first dice when they bought the expert set or whatever. A really spiffy DM screen with art all over it, and charts and table. I have no idea what the hell they mean. They might even be 5e, but I promised it to a friend anyway, so I don't care. And then there were two products that really caught my eye. Well, actually, one of the products caught me in the aisle. I was down on my scooter on Thursday when most of the dealers were mostly set up, because I try to just get around and see all my friends that are vendors, and whatever, before their mobs. And an individual, who I believe was Jason Vay, ran out and said, "Oh, please," I think he even called me Mr. Kasky. I said, no, I'm Tim. It's a running gag up there. And said, "I want you to have a copy of my book, my game." I said, okay. There were two books. The Wasted Lands is the name of the game setting. It's a big setting, 2 hardbounds. Jason Vay. It's called Wasted Lands, The Dreaming Age. And this is the first setting that's caught my eye and intrigued me in a long time, to the extent this has. This looks like a pretty interesting game to get involved in. It really does. You might want to at least check what you can find out about it, hear about it, or maybe if your friendly locals got it. There's a second volume that's more, it's just more DM-ish or oriented, I believe, from what I saw. Now, there was a booth that literally stopped me dead in my scooter in front of it. This individual had the most amazing sculptures on his booth. I mean, just amazing stuff. Now, he only had a few books printed up because he's trying to sell a concept. And he wanted me to have it, and I'm so glad he did, because the man's name, pardon me again, is Johnny Fraser Allen, and he worked for Spielberg for 17 years. And he's carving stuff, special effects, whatever. And this is a project that I think is going to be I don't know if it's going to be kickstarted or jumped right out. It's aimed at 5e, but I don't care. And when it does come out, I'll get it, just because the artwork is stunning. The whole concept is amazing. It's all about the gloaming, the deep, deep forest. The monsters, some of which are explanations or expansions on, others of which are entirely new takes on. His idea of a Nixie is absolutely nothing like what most people think of based on what most of the systems use for the basis of the Nixie. Well, when you work at some place like for Spielberg for 17 years, you get free reign. His, it just, the gloaming. It's going to be a 5e project, but I believe anybody that likes to take other stuff and pull it into their own is going to love this. I really do. And I think I've run out of things to blather on. So that being the case, I'll wish you all Dodata Gobi. Hello, and welcome to my cellar.
The curmudgeon who wrote about the dungeons. Now he's the feller, live from the cellar. Talks about D&D and old school RPGs. Still quite a feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar. Last man around when them rates went down. Called it Gary in that Lake Geneva town. Hey Gary, it's an awful mess. Let me edit, we'll have success. D&D and Dragon Magazine. He's the curmudgeon who wrote about the dungeons. Now he's the feller, live from the cellar. Talks about D&D and old school RPGs, but he's still quite the feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar. Magic missile, it's a mortar shell. Make it hit in the first level spell. Brought psionics to the game to attack that wizard's brain. ESR and fantasy, collection of micro armory, Titan with tramp under a tree, high as could be. He's the curmudgeon who wrote about the dungeons. Now he's the feller, live from the cellar. Talks about D&D and old school RPGs, but he's still quite the feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar. Still quite the feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar. Come on.